All right, now India is eager for development, but the United States is not the one that can provide New Delhi with the atmosphere that its development needs. India needs to be aware that without paying heed to Indian concerns, the US strategy is actually hampering and not aiding India's domestic development. It is China and not United States that can provide more support and knowledge to India. Now, this is what an opinion piece in China's influential newspaper, but also the Chinese government's mouthpiece, the Global Times, has said. The opinion piece comes after India-US 2+2 dialogue was cancelled for the second time. Remember, under the arrangement, defense and foreign ministers of the two countries were supposed to meet. However, that meeting has now reportedly been postponed. So why is China wooing India despite the friction at the border and also the massive trade imbalance? Is America's Indo-Pacific strategy unnerving China, and what should be India's response? So this of course is a bit of newfound love which China has expressed towards India, stating very clearly that the United States hasn't got it in it to provide the conditions that are needed for the development of India. And this is a mouthpiece of the Chinese government in which this editorial had appeared, clearly indicating that India should try and realign its ties with the Chinese government to try and progress further. So this is what the Chinese are saying, this very important juncture, and they are invoking the postponement, or in some senses the cancellation of the 2+2 dialogue between the defense and the foreign ministers of India and their counterparts of the United States. And for more on this, we are joined in by our senior editor, Surya Gangadharan. Good morning to you, Surya. This is an interesting bit of an editorial article that has appeared in the Global Times, where China is not leaving any stone unturned to try and wean India away from the United States.
I think the Chinese have always been wary of US-India tie-up, especially in terms when it comes to countering China. And the Global Times editorial, which reflects official thinking, is kind of a warning to India that the closer India gets to the US, the deeper could be the contradictions in our own neighborhood vis-a-vis China. So it's a warning, it's also a signal, it's an indication to India how the official viewpoint in Beijing is. Right,
the official viewpoint in Beijing. But the fact, Surya, is that China is not providing an alternative. Now, what this article has said is that the United States simply cannot provide the conditions that are needed for the development of India. But then, is there any other roadmap or a plan which the Chinese are suggesting? Because considering the manner in which the Chinese have positioned their Belt and Road Initiative, it is something which India simply cannot accept under any circumstance.
No, China is looking at all this from their own perspective. They want India to join the Belt and Road.
Right.
They know that India doesn't like it. But as far as they are concerned, Belt and Road is Xi Jinping's initiative, and all of Asia should fall in line. And they're not particularly concerned about India's strategic interests. They're concerned about China's interests. And for them, the more the number of countries in Asia that join up with China, the lesser the space left for the US to maneuver.
Right, less of the space for the United States to maneuver. But is China bringing anything to the table, anything substantial that India can actually work with China?
Maybe some, little concessions that China will make here and there. But let's be very clear, this is something that China wants to control.
Right.
They've been talking for quite some years about the need to ensure that Asia remains within Asian hands. Basically to imply that China will lead Asia, and the space for America and other countries which are not a part of Asia, there's no room for them. So it's basically Asia for Asians under China's leadership.
All right, interesting analysis there. We'll have to leave it at that. Thank you very much indeed, Surya Gangadharan, for joining us and getting us that perspective on this newfound love which China has expressed for India. But there has to be stuff that needs to be read between the lines in this mouthpiece of the Chinese government, which has said that India's best friend cannot be the United States because it cannot provide India the conditions that it needs for future economic growth.